Don't ever leave the Airbus. That's what it stands for.
He's Northwest Airlines. That's why. That's what it stands for.
All right. So, yeah. So, I'm not going to do a long bio. I graduated in '85 with a degree in aviation technology and mechanical engineering technology. I worked for Douglas Aircraft as an engineer for a couple years. I did a summer in Africa, got malaria. I was a flight instructor at LeTourneau for 2 years, and then I went to work for American Eagle in Chicago. I was there from '89 to '96. We merged with Metro, which put me in Dallas. So during that time, I flew the ATR and the Saab. And then I got hired in '96 at Northwest Airlines, which about 10 years ago. It was the first of the big mergers, merged into that. So, and then my flight path there was 727 engineer. I was a flight engineer. You guys weren't flight. Tim, you weren't a flight engineer, were you? Yeah.
Right to the bus.
So
I saw the light immediately.
Oh my gosh! So that was interesting, flying sideways for a couple years, and then I went to the Airbus, and I was on the Airbus on the small bus for 18 years, and for the last 3 years I've been the A330, so doing international. I've also done safety volunteer work with ALPA for the last 28 years, which involved doing some work with NASA, videos related to training for in-flight icing. I've done accident investigation work, and I currently serve on what's called the Commercial Air Safety Team, which is a joint government industry thing, which I was going to talk to Professor Laster about a lot of things we come across in that might be beneficial. Okay, so this slide here, you guys are all familiar with instrument approach charts. This is in Detroit, which is where I'm based. And you notice that intersection I've circled. So, yeah, so controllers get to name these intersections, and the story was that some controller wanted to hear a pilot report that he was overpaid. Sick humor. Okay. I'm just going to hit a couple of the high spots here. Travel benefits, retirement, and pay. So travel benefits, there's a lot of, talk to my wife, I don't know. Sometimes she wonders if it's really a benefit for the travel benefits, but my kids have traveled all over the world, and my wife and my parents and have travel privileges too. You have travel privileges on other airlines where you can get standby tickets. I've done that in Europe where you can go on a European airline. Jump seats. My 17-year-old daughter, I took her to France a year ago, and she got to ride in the jump seat of an A321 with me because it's the captain's discretion. That does not happen in the U.S. So she's up there, and after that flight, she's like, "Hey, maybe I should be a pilot." Don't do it. Yeah, I don't think she's the pilot person. Anyway, so part of our talk today, the three things that have the biggest effect on pay and some benefits. Can anybody tell me what that is? What those three things are? Seniority is one of them. Seniority is two of them, and seniority is three of them. Okay, what's the fourth one? So we've heard that through the theme throughout the day, and seniority is primarily determined by when you get hired, but in mergers that gets kind of shifted around. So other things affect your seniority, but it's that number is probably the single biggest thing people focus on in their careers because it determines when they can fly, what pay they get, vacation, on and on and on. So just something to think about because there's a lot of guys in this point in their career, they go, boy, if I just would have plotted a shorter path. If there's a furlough, and we talked about furloughs, that's when the airline is laying pilots off. You can be recalled. At my airline, it's up to 10 years. You can be on the street and get recalled if there's a downturn. So if you're the last guy furloughed, or you're the bottom of the list, I mean that's where those the edge of when you got hired can really have a big impact. So jump seats, non-rev. I talked about non-revenue travel. We also get discounts on hotels and all kinds of travel stuff. So you get entree in this whole world if you want to bounce around the world and do all kinds of stuff. It's not like it used to be in the old days. I put this in here. This is in the Airline Pilot Magazine. Top 3 places pilots live for ALPA. And I wanted you guys to guess. You see that, and this is this does not include American Airlines because they're not part of ALPA, but Georgia's in there because that's the biggest base for Delta Airlines. But why do you think Florida and Texas are in there as the...
No state tax.
Exactly. So most jobs you have to go live where you work, right? So, hey, you live in California versus Texas, that's a pay raise. I just spoke with a guy who moved from Minneapolis. he was talking about how much money he saved moving back to Texas. So that's one of those benefits of the job. You can live wherever you want. You can commute. You know, there's people that commute to work from Europe, or they live in Hawaii and they're based in Detroit. So this was retirement stuff. So the old days was a defined benefit where you get a pension. Some of us, I have a frozen pension, which is small. And Jerry, I think, has a pension. But pensions have gone the way of the dodo bird. So what today is a 401k. So if you go to work for an employer, basically it's up to you to save for your own retirement. And so I'm part of that transition age, but a defined contribution means you get to put in, or the company puts in a certain amount. So this is an example of what's current at some of the carriers right now, and it's the right-hand column. So up there you see it says 16% contribution for like American, United, and Delta. That's how much the company puts into our retirement account of our pay. So if you earn $100, they put $16 into your retirement account for the year. And 16% is a lot. If you save another 15 of your own, that'd be like 31%. If you have a long career, it can be a lot of money. So, and you control it. It's not a pension that can be taken away in a bankruptcy or by the courts. This is a pay scale for typical pay scale. Most airlines have a 12-year pay scale, meaning year one is in the far right. These are all the different categories. This airline doesn't necessarily fly all these different categories, but there's negotiated pay rates for them. So most people don't top out on their pay scale till they reach their 12th year at the airline. And then after that, it's either what's negotiated in the next contract or it's moving to a different seat. These are first officers. These are not captains. Yeah, what are you going to say?
I noticed that the Airbus A380 is not on there.
No U.S. carriers fly the 380, nor will they. The 380 is actually...
They might have it on there, though. So United has
Yes.
it on there, but it doesn't mean
Yes.
never.
The first 380s are going to the boneyard already.
What?
Yep.
Yep.
They don't make money.
So it's not, it missed the market, kind of way. So that's first officer pay. This is captain pay. So you can basically multiply that number by about 1,000 to get the annual pay, somewhere in that neighborhood. Masa mata. So, and career opportunities are seniority based, meaning you don't have to, outman the guy in the cubicle next to you to get that next position. If you're senior enough and you can, pass the training, the job is yours. And that's, some people really like that. Some people go, hey, I don't get recognized for my individual creativity and advancement, but it takes a whole lot of the politics out of career advancement when if I'm senior enough to bid that position, I can do it. We happen to be in contract talks right now, so we got contract comparisons for all the other carriers. And this kind of tells you, most of them are pretty similar. In the airline industry, we have what's called pattern bargaining. One carrier bids this, and then the other carrier says, okay, we're going to take American's contract, and we want to be there plus one, or at least be close. So most airlines, the big thing is you don't want one carrier to have a labor cost advantage over another one. So most of them are pretty similar. Not everybody flies the same aircraft, and this is you can see the different colors. That's called pay banding. So certain size aircraft, traditionally pay was based on the size of the aircraft. Basically, you could look at a wide-body aircraft as like a president of a small factory. The revenue generated by one 777 or an A330, it's a lot of money, and there are single flights that I've seen the numbers on them. It's a lot of money that's generated. So being responsible for that production. There's other overrides. If you do international flying, you get a little extra override, a couple bucks an hour. It talks about premium pay. We have a deal with Delta Airlines that if they're desperate for people, they usually staff the airline for the low periods. Summer's the high period, and so we have what's called green slips. They're double pay. Okay? So double pay is double pay. It's a lot of money, especially if it's like a 6-day trip that's worth, 50 hours or 40 hours, and then you double that. So it could be an extra month of pay sometimes for doing a single trip. Per diem, this is, at the airlines, the hotels and everything are booked for you and the transportation, but then you don't have to submit expense reports for your meals. They just pay you for every hour you're gone. These are typical per diem rates. So, and that can add up to several $100s in a month, and it's different for international because it's more expensive there too. And this slide, so here's an example. If you guys want to, looking at income, where does income fall in the overall population? There's actually an income percentile. If you're making $100,000 as an engineer or as a pilot, you're in the 86th percentile. That means that 86% of the population is making less than you. Okay. If you're making $200,000, you're in the 96th percentile. Okay, 96% of the population has a lower. And if you're at 300, you're 98. Now the curve gets pretty steep after that. The top 2% is right. You're going to be making $1 million a year. But there are a lot of pilots that are making more than $300,000 a year. So on an annualized basis, compared with other careers, and these numbers are not. You go back 10 years. These numbers were a lot lower as far as what pilots were making. And lastly, this was. I ripped this off a website that was for a training place, but I thought it was a good graphic. It talked about the potential, in a career could be a $7 million career in earnings and, retirement money and all that kind of stuff too. So it's no small thing, as far as the career earnings potential of the career. And, if you mind your P's and Q's, retirement's more responsible, laid more on us now than it was then. But guys getting hired today, they're going to be better off than our generation, I think, with pensions. All right, so that was the quick and dirty. Any questions about money or lack thereof, or benefits, anything like that? All that stuff. It's the point being too, and we all go to work because we want to do what we want to do, but if you can make more money doing what you're doing, I think most of us would probably choose to find a career path that gives you more financial options that way. So, yes, go ahead.
With any airline that has multiple jets, could you, where they say, hey, we are going to upgrade you from a 7.3 to an A300? Would they ever tell you that, or would you have to request to be moved to it?
Yeah. So what is like schedules? There's things called bidding. They call it bidding, and it's where. So for us, we have a special system where you have to request. I want to be in a different seat.
Oh.
And what they do is we just had one came out yesterday or today, and so they say, hey, we need captains in these categories, and everybody puts their wish list, right? Mm-hmm. If you're like me, I don't do anything. I have no wish list. I'm where I want to be. So, there's an old saying, bid what you want what you bid, because you're going to fly it if you get it. And there's guys that have had, I just flew with an old guy that he forgot he had something in his bid, and he ended up, bidder's remorse. Yeah, I called one of my friends. I saw he was a first officer in 747, and they were downsizing the 747. No airlines in the U.S. fly that. No passenger airlines fly that anymore. And so when they were getting rid of the 747, he was first officer, and he knew he was going to get displaced, pushed out of the category. So he had to put his wish list in there. So he goes, I'll be 7.5 captain. I'll be this, I'll buy that. And he didn't expect to get any of that. So I looked when the list came out, and I saw his name, and I call him, and he goes, what? And he's like the plug. He's the plug, what they call the plug. He's like the bottom guy in that category to do that. So but it's your choice. I'm the senior guy here. My airline career started in '89, but I'm still a first officer international because I retain more seniority in that category than I would as a narrow body captain.
And of course, you have to be like have your rating for that.
Right. So if you bid it, then for us they send us our training on a stick, and we learn all the systems. We all learn all the systems. The first day of training, we take a test on systems. That's how it's all. You do it yourself at home on a stick. You take a systems validation test, and then you launch right into the static simulator and sim sessions and all that kind of stuff too. So that's training can be. Tim didn't talk about this. He's in that department, but for a lot of guys, they never get over that. Bruce probably could talk to this. That check ride-itis, right? I mean, the best pilots. It's the thing about a check ride. Howard talked about the white coat. Blood pressure, but there's pilots that they've gone through their whole career. They're 64 and it's still a stressful experience to go for a check ride because someone's evaluating them. I could lose my job. I could get off the line. All this kind of thing. So that's part of. You have to learn how to manage that stress. And some people won't bid positions because they don't want to go through another training cycle. It's one thing to go for recurrent for a couple days. It's another to go through a couple month thing of training and then initial operating experience and all that stuff too. So, yeah, go ahead.
After the 12th year, do they make you go like from first captain?
Nope. So back in the old days, American was the only airline that had a mandatory upgrade. They would force you to upgrade because at American they only hired captains, and I think it was United that went through a period where they had a lot of hires they were forced to hire by the government, and some of those pilots, probably should have stayed as first officers. And
we have some pilots that will always stay at first.
Yes, they. So no, you can. It's your choice. You want to stay. You want to be a MD-80 first officer. You want to be a 737 first officer, and that there's guys that they've got another job on the side and they don't need it for income, so they just go, hey, I'm going to fly a minimal schedule. I want to be senior to get the trips I want. So it's all about choice. Seniority, I look at seniority as money you can spend. You can spend it any way you want. You can live where you want. You can be in the plane you want. You want to have a lot of days off. You want to make a lot of money. I mean, you can do it that way too. You can fly the most senior thing you can hold. So it's all about choices, which is good, right? And some guys don't make very good choices, or they regret them, or they complain about their own choices. That's more like us pilots, So. Anyway, that's that old joke, the difference between a jet engine and a pilot, right?
Nothing. They both whine all the time.
Okay, he stole away. So anyway, any more questions or comments? Thanks for enduring to the end, guys, and I guess that's it. So our cards are out there. If you need to grab a card, you want to contact any of us.
If you come through Denver, look me up. I will try to get you in a simulator if you guys are interested.
You guys are all LeTourneau graduates.